Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being covered in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined this week by Thad Greenson, news editor, and Jennifer Fumiko Cahill, arts and features editors at the North Coast Journal. Welcome, guys.
How you doing?
How you doing, Dave?
Pretty good. Hopefully things are well with you. We had a day or two of sunshine. Hopefully that'll get us through till next time it stops raining.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it was nice while we had it. Not good while it lasted.
We have also, I'll note, crossed the threshold into normal or above normal for the water year.
Oh, that's awesome news.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So that'll put a smile on your face, kind of like sunshine.
It's the only normal thing about Humboldt right now.
You're right. I guess speaking of sunshine, Thad, why don't you tell us what's on the cover of this week's North Coast Journal?
That is a great segue. We have the Foilies, the annual awards, kind of tongue-in-cheek awards given out by the Electronic Frontier Foundation and the folks at Muck Rock News, who put together a list of awards to kind of the most egregious public records violations across the country. And they do this every year in kind of a celebration to bring awareness to Sunshine Week. And so we ran it this week.
Fantastic. I know there are about a dozen or so of these really, really clever examples of just the absurdity of secrecy in governance. But we have a very special member of that list this year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about our local hometown hero on the Foibles Award? Is that what it's called?
Foilies.
Foilies Award. There you go.
Yes, our neighbors to the south, Mendocino County, received the Transparency Tax Award this year, and so this is in response to an ordinance that Mendocino passed last year, implementing a fairly I'd say cutting edge approach to public records responses. And probably illegal, I'll also add. Although it has yet to be challenged. So the California Public Records Act, which is essentially the Freedom of Information Act, but for the state of California, has a provision that it only allows agencies to recover kind of the immediate costs of duplicating records. And so basically it limits agencies to charging for copies, for the expense of copies, the ink, the paper, and the upkeep of the copier. But Mendocino County, in response to what it felt were, kind of a host of really overly broad, huge Public Records Act requests that were draining county resources, the Board of Supervisors last year passed an ordinance that charges requesters for the cost of the staff time associated with reviewing and responding to requests. And so everything from kind of the cost of lawyers reviewing potentially responsive documents to see what information needs to be redacted or what can and can't be released, to the cost of just an average staffer kind of going to hunt down the records themselves. And so, for instance, the staffer is charged $20 an hour or the requester is charged $20 an hour for a search fee. So if you say if you wanted this ordinance governing the responses to California Records Act, if you sent in a request saying, I would like a copy of Ordinance 5034 or whatever the actual number of the ordinance is, they would provide it free of charge, or at least just charging for copies. But if you said, I want the recent ordinance pertaining to public records, then they would have to search for that ordinance and they could charge you $20 an hour for that staff time. Where things get really kind of crazy in my mind is that if they find responsive records that, like I said, need to undergo a legal review, they can charge up to $150 an hour to do that review. So, essentially what this ordinance does is it makes filing a Public Records Act request cost prohibitive for the average Mendocino citizen, and really really closes off access to, by the people to their own records, which is rather shameful.
I was going to say, besides being shameful, it's also quite absurd that it rose to the level of, the transparency tax that the EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, highlighted this as nationwide. It's that egregious.
It is, and as I said, there is going to be a legal challenge to it. I'm sure. I know folks at kind of various First Amendment organizations throughout the state are looking at this. There's a similar ordinance that was passed, and I think it was Ventura County, and I know that some legal action is coming. I'm not sure from whom or when, but.
Well, right on. Thank you for keeping us in the loop on this air quotes achievement. I know there's, like I said, about a dozen other really clever and funny kind of things. Did anything else stand out that you'd like to point us towards, or should we just tell people to, go find this online or on newsstands?
I would just tell people to find it. It's as you said. I mean, there's just some very tongue-in-cheek awards and some egregious abuses, and the folks at EFF and Grok really do a nice job of kind of distilling these pretty complex access issues into something that's an entertaining read, and I think will give people a better understanding of why we have these sunshine laws, and as you said before, just the kind of nutty extent that some agencies go to kind of circumvent them.
Well, right on. Thank you very much. I definitely recommend people check it out. What else have you got going on this week on the news beat?
Yeah, so we also have a story that, frankly, I never thought I would write, that broke Monday on March 20th when we got word that Jeff Woodkey, a missionary aid worker from McKinleyville who had been held hostage in Western Africa for more than 6 years, had been freed. And so, I reported on the story when he was taken captive by a group of armed men in Niger, where he has a home and was working. And after the first year or so of him being held in captivity, it was one of those things that I just kind of thought, honestly, that we would never see or hear from Jeff Woodkey again. So it was really nice to report the story of him being released.
What's cool in your coverage is, number one, there was a photograph taken of him being released, so it's official and it's legit, and the family will, in theory, do some sort of press release or press event in the future once he gets home and settled in. This is fantastic news. There's a lot more in there about his background and the situation where he works and his dedication to kind of, spreading all sorts of positivity over there in West Africa. Any other observations at all about the situation? Just a happy story that he's coming back.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't know a lot about kind of what led to his release. U.S. officials have said that no ransom was paid, no deals were cut, essentially. But it's really unclear kind of what immediately led to his release. Although we know that Niger officials were kind of on the front lines of negotiating it. Last we'd heard that he had spoken to his wife, Els Woodkey, by phone, and she said that he sounded good and was in good spirits and was undergoing some medical evaluations. So I'm sure we'll have more on the story, hopefully later this week when the family intends to hold a press conference. So.
Fantastic. There's some words of positivity in there from the president and also from our Congressman Huffman. So it was definitely a big deal for the country, and it's a big deal for our community. So thank you for covering it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you got one more for me. What else you got going on?
I do have one more. So we also reported that the Humboldt County Fair Association has a new general manager. So we'd reported that Rich Slachy, who held the position for about a year, resigned in January, and he got rave reviews on the job, but felt like it was a bigger job than he had anticipated and was really willing to take on at this stage in his life. And so he stepped down, and there was a bunch of there was uncertainty about kind of what direction the Fair Association board was going to choose, and it really seemed that the board was going to kind of go general managerless for the interim until it could do a kind of a full national search. And then, kind of out of the blue, they announced that they had hired Jill Duffy as an interim general manager, who will see the fair at least through the association through the actual fair in August. And folks, longtime North Coast residents probably remember Jill from her role as the executive director of the Humboldt Waste Management Authority, which she held for quite a while until retiring recently, and then also as the former 5th District Humboldt County Supervisor.
How long ago was she supervisor, approximately?
I would say about 15 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right, right on. Seems like a blast from the past.
Yeah.
But this is good news.
I think for folks who who care about the fair, she is a very renowned as a very competent person who will I think will be a good steward of it for the coming months and provide some stability, which the association needs right now.
Definitely. Well, right on. Thank you very much, as always, for covering, letting us know what you're covering this week. We appreciate you in a big way.
Absolutely, Dave.
How about you, Jen? What is going on the Arts and Features beat this week?
I feel very lucky to have Meg Wallwild, a freelance writer that we work with quite a bit, around to go and jump into things, partly because I'm always, not everything that you get to write about as a freelancer is fun. But some of it's very sad, some of it's very difficult, some of it you have to stand out in the rain for. But it was nice to be able to send Meg to something that I knew that she would love and nerd out on. And it's a very feel-good story that's happening locally. So have you been to Mind's Eye Coffee in Ferndale?
I think I have, yeah.
They have very nice scones.
Nice,
I think
yes.
The cat is still there. The cat might still be there. I like a cafe that has its own cat, so you can go and get those good cat vibes and not actually have to own one. So in the back of that shop, there's a workshop, and it's the Mind's Eye Manufactory. And you can kind of sort of peek and see what's going on back there. But they're actually very cool about letting you come in and see. And recently they've been sharing a lot about a project that they've been working on. So in 2014, Mark Daniels Eigenachs, who is kind of the main guy back there, he and his wife Leah started teaching these apprenticeships where they taught native boat building to local native youth. And now in Humboldt, of course, in our environment, boat building traditionally has been about finding a big old tree, right? And painstakingly hollowing it out. It makes sense, right? These are the resources that we have. Hollowing it out and making a kind of a kayak or a canoe out of it and sailing with that. And it's a lot harder than I'm describing it, but that's the basic idea. Anyway, however, it's different, surprise, surprise, in the Arctic.
I bet.
Why does that have anything to do with Humboldt County? Because, in fact, in the 1700s, this is according to Meg's, hunting and finding and, again, happily nerding out, the Aleutian Islands and its people found themselves on the radar of Russian settlers, fortune hunters, etc., adventurers, and they were enslaved, as many Indigenous people were all over. So they were forced to relocate, and then eventually they were dumped in the Russian Fort Ross. And so they were dumped far, far from home, and they didn't have the materials, they didn't have any of, the usual survival tools to help them. The boats that they used were purposely destroyed in order to kind of, as Meg says in the story, to break the chain of knowledge, which, as we've seen in other instances, like we've talked to folks who study things like native food sovereignty, who talk about how foodways are broken in order to break a culture. and boats being part of those foodways, boats being part of the, of course, the transport, the survival of the people. So once you take that away, it's a big part of a culture. It's a big part of survival. So now they are trying to bring back the making of those boats, which is very tricky because, there aren't a lot around. But they have researched and found how these things were made traditionally. And in 2022, they made a pair of boats, and they were, it was a wonderful, happy, ecstatic occasion with lots of Native youth learning how to make them. But then now Daniels Eigenax went and talked to the Wiyot tribe and was like, hey, I want to make sure that I have your blessing to build another one of these boats on Wiyot land. And the Wiyot tribe was like, yes, and also we'll help. And so he got some volunteers from there. He got volunteers from the general community around Humboldt, and also some folks from St. Paul Island, Alaska. Some Alaskan Indigenous tribal folks came down and got into it. And so all these visitors have been here and helping to build this traditional boat. And part of what's really cool about it is, the process kind of teaches you about the place and about the culture. Again, no big redwoods lying around in the Arctic, evidently. Instead, you're looking at driftwood, and that means that the pieces are smaller and the materials you're going to use are different. Like, for example, whale baleen. Not a lot of whale baleen lying around here, but in Alaska, somewhat different. So they used, different byproducts of hunting, like sinew and stuff like that, as some of the materials to kind of like lash together pieces of driftwood to form this really specific boat shape. Not all of that can be done now because, baleen, as I said, also, instead of using the traditional skins and killing a bunch of stellar sea lions, they decided to instead adapt to the times and current populations. And they used all kinds of like artificial sinew and twine and nylon cord that's been like waxed and treated and things like that, and really came up with some stuff that's quite similar in terms of how it works, how it, withstands tension, etc. And, they've started putting together this boat. And recently they had a big open house night where everybody, the public, could just come and help tie things down. And we have some great pictures of that.
Oh, cool.
There's a very cool angle to it too, because, as the folks who were running it were saying, this isn't about making a historic replica. This isn't about making a museum piece. The plan is to get this thing built, especially with, a focus on Native youth, and then to put it in the water and ride it out and to kind of bring that back to life. At one point, he says, our intention is to get youth on the water and to make the vessels relevant as opposed to being artifacts. And that is really a central issue, right? When we talk about Indigenous culture, too often, like when you see like even an interpretive sign, sometimes we'll talk about Native people in the past tense. And it's like, no, they're still here. In particular, in Humboldt, they're still here in, the land that they began on, which is unusual. But this is really about continuing and fixing that broken chain of knowledge. And so it's a really cool thing. And you can still kind of get in on it. If you have always wanted to help make a traditional boat, you can actually volunteer. You can donate money. You can follow the project on Facebook, where they'll show you the constant updates about it. And then they're going to be having a launch. And as soon as we know when that launch is, I'm definitely going to have somebody follow up on it. Hopefully Meg, because she loves this. And they're going to send this big skin boat out onto the sea. So it's really kind of an exciting thing. And you can go and see it. If you call them and make plans, make a reservation. You can go and see the boat being built. You can contribute. And yeah, it's a cool little community. It's supposed to be a community building. And it is, once again.
This is really cool. I'm so glad you covered it, and that we got the opportunity. We have, rather, the opportunity to see this right in our own community. They're also doing a video. They have a videographer, so they're going to be producing some sort of documentary version of this, which is really cool. And so there's information in the article where you can get in touch with them directly by email or by phone. So this is really like a hands-on kind of great way to kind of engage and learn, like you said, connect the past to the present, which is a fantastic opportunity for young folks.
It really is. It's very cool. And it's cool to, let everybody in on seeing how it goes.
Right on. What else do you have going on this week on the Arts and Features Beat?
Well, it's every once in a while, Simona Carini pops in to remind us to eat our vegetables, Dave. And this is that time.
Thanks.
And I know, I have to be scolded into it, but then once I have them, I do like them. So,
me too.
And this week she's talking about salad. And this is not a particular elaborate, crazy, difficult salad. I don't know if this happens to you, but, I find a recipe usually in some schmancy online outlet or magazine or something, and it's like 17,000 ingredients, and they're all like $12 each, and it looks like the most fabulous, amazing salad. And then I go to the supermarket and I'm like, romaine will do.
Yeah.
But she has kind of a cool formula that you can play with that is not craziness. It's just kind of, to me, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about getting out of your salad rut. And her basic formula overall, if I can just sort of distill it down, is, lettuce, greens, that kind of thing. Easy. Some root vegetables, something above ground, something below ground. Maybe a little fruit. Really simple, basic vinaigrette that you can play off of. She has two of the easiest dressings you'll ever make. But I swear, this is like an Italian thing. Dave, back me up. So somehow, when you're making various dressings or when you buy bottle dressings, they're like, so much is going on. The ingredients are like 1,000 items long. But when you just like get a jar and like some lemon juice and olive oil and, and salt and pepper and shake it, it's freaking great. My husband does this, and we've had guests that are just like, what is this dressing? And he's like, it's oil and vinegar. It's literally just oil and vinegar.
I was just going to say that when I was a kid, that was dressing, oil and vinegar.
Yeah, that's what Italian families eat.
Oregano, salt and pepper, and sometimes some lemon or citrus or something. But salt, like I said. But yeah, that's about it. That's dressing.
And this is how I responded when I went over and had salad for the first time with my Sicilian mother-in-law, is just like, I was like, what is this? And she's like, it's literally a vinaigrette.
Yeah.
Can't believe my son married you. I'm kidding. So, but this dressing, she has just two really easy options of like, extra virgin olive oil, sherry vinegar in a glass jar with a secure lid and like a little bit of salt. And the other one is, granted, she makes a homemade mayonnaise because she's Simona, but likewise, just a little bit of sherry vinegar and mayonnaise shaken in a jar is awesome. And she makes this of course, when she makes the salad, it's beautiful. So you can look at the picture and just aspire to her beautiful Instagram worthy salad picture. But it does kind of make you want to abandon the sad little bag of romaine to do something different. And it's a way to go through the farmer's market with a formula and not get overwhelmed and leave with 1,200 pounds of lettuce that you will not consume in time. So I urge everybody to look at it, glance it over, and let it inspire you. Even if you don't make the exact recipe that she has here, let it take you out of your sad salad rut.
Right on. Well, this is words to live by. And one, I'll just pass on a little tip from the article. Grate the root vegetables, right? So grated carrots, grated radishes, throw in a little crumbled cheese, and it's really kind of fancy on the palate.
Yeah, you don't have to like stick with the weird salad bar that you've got in your mind with, no shade on the Elks Club, but you know what I'm talking about.
Oh no.
Yeah.
The core three: lettuce, iceberg lettuce, tomatoes, and cucumber. Core three.
Cisco Ranch. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, cool. Jen, we appreciate you, and of course Simona as well, because always get us out there for more vegetables. We need the push. It's beneficial. She's right. She is right. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have this week. Jen, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you out there, everyone, for listening. North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick one up, stay informed. Also available online 24/7, so you can check them out anytime. Thanks again, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Take care till next time. Bye, everybody.